Test, 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 test. Do we sound good? Test, 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 test. All right. Are we live?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of our Real Estate as a Tax Strategy weekly live event where I break down strategies and tactics to help you invest in real estate, maximize your income, keep, grow, and protect the things that you love. And today we're going to be talking about LLCs. You know, LLCs are a huge part of our tax strategy today, and what we do for our clients, and what I do for everybody. What the information that I share is, it's really important to understand what an LLC is and how it works. But before we get there, let's go over to the whiteboard and let's really break down exactly what we need to be discussing, right? So, you know, here's our slogan, right? Keep, grow, protect. These are our pillars, if you will, of ways that we would do or help you maximize your tax savings and your strategy, okay? We keep and grow and protect. Now, this ties into our 3 pillars for our 3% club, right? We keep our money, right? Keep our money from taxation. We grow our money with our investment strategies, and we protect it all from taxes and lawsuits, litigation. And so today with an LLC, I want to talk to you about how it plays a role in all 3 areas of your tax strategy, okay? So with that being said, let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about an LLC. So what does that stand for? It stands for Limited Liability Company. Now, a limited liability company is founded in states, right? It's founded in a state, so like Texas or Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming. These are going to talk about today, but they're founded in a state. And the reason that you found an LLC in a state is because the state recognizes LLCs, the IRS doesn't. Now, that's interesting because you're like, what do you mean? I file a tax return with an LLC. LLCs are formed in states, and then what happens is when you form it in a state, the IRS will recognize it, right, as an entity if you apply to get it recognized. But you don't have to, okay? You can have a disregarded entity, is what they call them in states, okay? So an LLC is a disregarded entity until it applies with the IRS to get this, okay? This is important to understand because the IRS isn't somebody who forms LLCs. You don't form LLCs at the IRS level and those things. Now, for those of you who are real estate investors, this is a great strategy to really think about because, you know, LLCs play a big part in this. So LLC, limited liability company. What you do is you take this LLC and you have to determine what you want to do with it, right? Most people think it's for taxes, which it's really not, but it can be. And then they also think about protection, right? So these are things that we think about. Now, the LLC is founded for protection purposes, primarily in different states. And each state has its own requirements and its own things going on. So you have to determine which state makes sense for you. So today we're going to cover the top 3 states that we want to maximize in order for us to be able to get the maximum protection and to know which states matter to you, okay? Now, this is important, right? So forming an LLC is a very important part of the strategy for tax savings and asset protection, right? So to keep and protect, okay? This is very important. Now, which states do we use the most when we're forming strategy? So today I'm going to talk about the states that we use the most. Now, I've got my handy dandy notes because I don't want to forget anything. So we're going to go through this together, right? And make sure we get this, right? So forming an LLC is very important. Now, the way you form it is in a state so you could get protection. Now, picking that state is very important because it all depends upon what you're trying to protect and what benefits do you want to receive, right? So the first question I ask you, does it make sense to have an LLC, right? Having an LLC isn't needed for everyone. In fact, most people don't need an LLC if they don't have anything to protect, if they're not owning assets, if they're not going to do business activities. You don't need an LLC. In fact, most people think you need an LLC to do anything. In fact, you could do everything with what you call a DBA. You know, DBA or sole proprietorship can be used just the same as an LLC. The only difference if you need an LLC is if you're going to own assets, if you're going to conduct business, if you put yourself in legal challenges in the future, this would be very important, okay? So let's talk about the top 3 tax, or actually LLC friendly states that you can open your LLC in, okay? First and foremost, I want to lay some ground rules. It's always best if at the end, I'll share with you these tips, but it's always best to know that forming an LLC in your state is always an option, right? Forming an LLC in your state, the state that you reside in, is always an option. So let's talk about the top 3 states, though, that I would recommend you filing an LLC application in. First one, let's talk about Delaware, right? So some stats. 50% of all publicly traded U.S. companies LLCs are formed in Delaware. 50%, that's a huge number. Apple, Amazon, Google, these are all companies formed in Delaware, okay? Now, 63% of Forbes 500 companies are formed in Delaware, which means most companies, think about like paper companies, Walmart's, everybody's is formed in Delaware. And the reason they do that, because they have low corporate taxes, number one. And in addition to that, there's no residency requirement, so you don't have to live there to form it. A special business court is formed there, which is called the Delaware Court of Chancery. That's what it's called, Chancery. And it specializes in commercial business activities, and it's bestly known for its favorable business practices. So it typically resides with businesses when you go to court there. Now, I have a company that's formed in Delaware. Recently, we started a new business, and that company was formed in Delaware for these exact reasons, right? I don't have to live there. There's no corporate tax. And more importantly, I can depend on this state as a place to manage my litigation and lower my risks because they favor businesses over individuals, okay? And they have a special court for that, the Chancery Court. Next state, Nevada. Now, Nevada, home of Las Vegas, great city to go into, but Nevada is great because it is one of the top, it has no imposed corporate tax, and it has no franchise tax, which states like Texas do. The state does not participate in income sharing with the IRS, or in reporting sharing. So for an example, whatever you show to the state of Nevada, they do not share with the IRS, which is awesome. So if you wanted to have low risk of an audit, this would be a great place for you to set up, right? And it allows businesses to remain confidential. They don't share your information. And operating organizational agreements and annual meetings are not required in this particular state. So I like Nevada. If I had a business that I wanted nobody to know who I was, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have high overhead from filings, this would be a great state to open up. Now, the third one, and you guys probably hear this one the most, is Wyoming. Now, Wyoming's a great state. By the way, not only is Wyoming beautiful, I love going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I think it's a beautiful state, but it does have some benefits. Number one, does not impose corporate, personal, or franchise taxes. So there's no taxes to be filed in this state. It's very easy to file things in this state, meaning you could just go in online and file it pretty easily. Confidentiality when it comes to LLCs is very, very good, right? It does not share any public records about you, and it has lifetime proxies, which means it continues for a lifetime until you stop it, and versus most states only give you 10 years. So the question now becomes, which of the 3 states do you feel like you belong in, right? If you want to get some high protection for your corporation, like if you were going to structure a large organization, large corporation, maybe Delaware, right? If you were going to buy maybe a vehicle or equipment, maybe you would do Nevada. If you wanted some really high level privacy, this might be Wyoming, all of which have different characteristics and different benefits that I would choose from. Now, me personally, I like to pick the state that I'm in, especially if I don't find that I have a huge risk. For an example, if I were owning real estate, I'd always want to own the real estate inside of the state that I had the property. And the reason being, it just makes things so much easier. You see, when you register in another state, an LLC, if you don't reside there, typically it's required that you are a registered foreign entity, which means you don't live there. And because of that, that typically requires that you register in your residency state. So I would have to open my Wyoming LLC, then apply in the state of Texas to be a foreign entity or a registered entity here. So it's kind of like I'm sharing information in between states. The privacy stuff that I'm looking for might get broken at that point if I don't do it correctly. There's a lot of nuance there that I would avoid doing if I were you. I would just want to form it in the state that I need it. Now, I like C corporations to be formed in the state of Delaware. I think it's a great state to be in. I like corporations or companies like S Corps in Wyoming. I like assets to be held in Nevada. These are all things, of course, I talk to your tax professional or your tax strategist to help you make these decisions, right? I can't make them for you, but I think these are great opportunities for you to take advantage of, right? So, conclusion, right? Make sure you pick a state that has easy compliance, doesn't require a lot of filings. Like Texas has an annual filing franchise tax, which is kind of annoying. Make sure you try to find one that doesn't have a corporate tax or a tax return tied to it. Make sure you find a state that has anonymity for you, which means privacy, and make sure that it has favorable courts if you decide to open a corporation, right? I believe that whatever state you operate in, make sure you form an LLC. It is a foundation of protecting your assets. Okay, so let's answer some questions that we have here, right? This is from our real estate group. If you're in our real estate group, we answer your questions live, right? So this is from Yulia, and Yulia says, I have been watching your YouTube channel and have questions about our rental family management company. I own and rent out 4 properties that are registered under an LLC, one LLC. I filed a Form 1040 with Schedule E, which means she files it on her personal tax return, and for all these 4 properties. And I decided I'm going to open a family management company, which I'll be filing on Schedule C, which is the way to do it. And if this is how I'm going to do it, can any of my rental operating expenses be reported or depreciated or considered on the Schedule C, right? Like her house and stuff. So first off, the Schedule C for your family management company is just for the purposes of, let's say, paying your children, maybe having board meetings and things of that nature. Home office and expenses and things, those should be associated to an accountable plan, possibly on an S Corp or another business activity. Or maybe they could even be passed down to the actual tax returns, the Schedule E's. Just depends on how you notate this, okay? Now, the reason this is important, Yulia, is because the Schedule E only allows for certain things. And the family management company typically is just a DBA with an EIN from the IRS. It's not usually an LLC. Now, you could form an LLC to do this, but then you're going to fall into the trap. Do I need it to be S Corp? Do I need it to, there's just a lot of things. If you have another business, I would encourage you to maximize those expenses within the other business. It's very hard to tell without having so much of your story. I would just say the family management company is not the place for all those expenses on Schedule C, specifically that you're going to have a loss. You don't want to have a significant loss. In most cases, a family management company should be a wash. Okay? All right. Jail from Facebook Messenger sent me a message. If I purchase a lot for new construction, would you recommending purchase the lot under LLC? Absolutely. The lot should be an LLC, and then the property that you build should be built inside of that LLC as well. All right. Question from Patty Thompson. She's from TikTok. What if I earn more than $400,000 on a W-2? $400,000 on a W-2, right? This is important. $400,000 on a W-2. I believe if you make that kind of money, you need to have a tax strategist in your corner. And what's really important about the tax strategy in this particular case, if you're looking to invest in real estate, I would recommend highly the short-term rental strategy. The short-term rental strategy would allow you to offset your W-2 income. So typically, if you make $400,000 on a W-2, that tells me that you're probably a full-time, probably dedicated person to the company, and it would probably negate your ability to become a real estate professional. So because you can't be a real estate professional, Patty, what we want to do is we want to use the short-term rental loophole, which means you acquire a property between, here and the end of the year. You convert that property into a short-term rental, which you manage for 100 hours a year and have average stays of 7 days or less. Then what we do with that is we qualify you. If you have average stays of 7 days or less, manage it for 100 hours. We qualify you as a technical real estate professional for this property. Then we use the depreciation on that property and we accelerate it with a cost segregation, which gives you a big, gigantic loss, hopefully, that you apply towards your W-2 income. And that's a great strategy, Patty. And I hope you got that. We do have other content that you can watch. I have other videos. And in our group, we discussed this. Now, if you have other questions, guys, you guys have questions, put them in the chat. I'd love to hear them. If you need assistance figuring out which state or any of these things that would apply to you, which state you should have your LLC for your properties, which state you should have your LLCs for your management company, you can always look and reach out to us, comment down below. And You also are welcome to join our group, which if you're not in our Facebook group, which is a real estate as a tax strategy group, I'd love to have you in there as a member, where we drop down information, scenarios, and break down deals every single day, right? Every single day. So do we have any questions, Alex? Did we have anything come through? No worries. Okay. Well, today's topic was about LLCs, and I hope you understand today now that there's 3 LLC states that I really like. Delaware, number 1. Number 2, Nevada. And number 3, Wyoming. All 3 have their own advantages to protecting your assets. Determining which one makes sense for you determines how you're going to structure your business. And always consider talking to your tax professional or your tax strategist when making these types of decisions, because they are having tax consequences. Now, there also is legal stuff that can be considered. So if you want to talk to your attorney, that would not be a bad idea as well, as I'm not an attorney. All right. So if you like this information and you want to have more, again, join my group or comment below and say, I like this stuff, and we'll give you more content. I'd love to answer any of your questions. Shoot me a direct message if you have a specific question you'd like for me to answer or answer live here. I'm thankful for you watching this video, and I look forward to serving you on future videos. And wishing you a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.